Here's the intro video, y'all.
What is gravity?
You have no idea. Okay, next question. This is called gravity. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. This is called gravity.
Neil, I gotta say, you're totally blowing my mind right now.
That's what I do. I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, bitch.
What's up, guys? Hope y'all are doing well. John TheMorgile here, checking in with you live from Honea Path, South Carolina. Today is November 13th, 2024. Hope y'all are having a great, wonderful, and blessed day. So real quick, if y'all caught yesterday's stream, I had mentioned something that was pertinent to the conversation about Eisenhower's farewell address, and there was a clip from that that is prescient, pertinent, and timely, and all that. So let me run that real quick, and then I'm going to comment on that. And we're not going to play the 15 or 17-minute thing. It's all of like just a couple of minutes. So let's start with that. And then we'll get into it.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Yeah, damn right. And right at the end there, he mentioned only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can stand up against this sort of tyranny, and that's 100% right. Which is exactly why they have been dumbing us down for generations, because you can take advantage of a pack of idiots, right? People that have been, not idiots is the wrong word, because we were all counted among them at least at one point in our lives. But when people have been deceived to their toenails, you can lead them around, you know, by the nose wherever you want to take them. It is much easier to manipulate people that are misinformed than people that know what the hell's going on, right? Um, and you know, Eisenhower, I think at this point on his way out of the presidency, you know, it's a great thing to point to, because if you tell this sort of thing to the average Joe, if you say it, it's a conspiracy theory. But if a then sitting president of the United States says it, and actually I think he felt kind of guilty because he was manipulated into allowing a lot of that stuff to occur. I think that maybe his heart was in the right place, but he, you know, it's sort of besides the point. But from what I gather, he sort of allowed himself to be manipulated by this deep state into essentially doing away with certain checks and balances that, you know, we now have this sort of runaway rogue deep state that we're still dealing with to this day. And, you know, I think more importantly than that is a lot of atrocities all over the world are done in our name, you know, the American people's name. And so, you know, regardless of what your political views are, and regardless of who you may have voted for, you know, if the U.S. military is going around the world wreaking havoc on people for no reason, then you know that makes us the bad guy because they're using our resources and our sort of good name to do that sort of thing. Even though it's, you know, in all cases it's totally unbeknownst to us, and if we try to ask our government about the details of these sorts of things, they just tell us it's classified, and they're not going to tell us. You know, so it's a big problem. And you know, so that's the sort of clip that I was pointing to yesterday, and we just didn't get to it. My computer was absolutely bogging down, and it got to the point to where it was unmanageable, and I could tell it was going to crash, and I just just couldn't deal with it, man. It was unmanageable, and so there it is. So there is that clip from Eisenhower. Um, Real quick, so one thing, I've been getting some emails and people asking me, or like people incorrecting me on the spelling of this show. So let me share the thumbnail here with you guys on screen here, and we'll go over it. If I can damn well find it. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, don't you love it when people incorrect you though? Like they're telling you you're doing something wrong when you're actually doing something right, and so they tell you the wrong thing to do instead. Yeah, they're incorrecting you, right? Um, so okay, so the title of this stream I've been doing for like years and years and years, on and off, static plain truth. And the reason for this, we'll go through it. There's sort of a few double entendres here, right? So static, there's two connotations for the word static, right? So static means stationary, like as in not moving, as in the earth is static. But then also it is a dielectric plane that we're dealing with. And so we have a static plane that is indeed static in multiple senses. So it doesn't move, so it's stationary static, but it also sort of generates this, or is a conduit for this sort of electromagnetic forces, right? And so you have this free energy that's generated from the dielectric plane, right? Dielectric plane is a electrical sort of capacitor system, right? Whatever, maybe that's not the right words for it, but you understand the difference between static and static, right? So we have a static plane, and of course, now if you're going to tell someone the plain truth, that's PLAIN, like plain yogurt, right? PLANE is like talking about an airplane or like a plane surface, right? So like a table is a plane. And so people have often incorrected me that I need to spell plane, that I misspell plane in the title of this. And really, either way, it's one of those things where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because if I was to spell it PLAIN, you'd have the half of people that said I spelled it wrong, because plane, as in the plane of the earth, is spelled the other way, right? So I made an executive decision and I spelled it static plane truth because it looks like it's spelled wrong better that way, and it kind of is a more obvious thing to be incorrected on. So I am aware that the spelling of the words plain is, you know, there's connotations depending on the way that you spell the word plain, and the way that you see it here. Oh shit, y'all can't even see it, so maybe I should fucking. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me. I'm just so retarded. Let's see. Let me share my screen here. Um, duh, Johnny. Okay, right. So what I was talking about is this here. Okay. So yeah, static plain truth, and that's what it is, man. It's there's a double entendre going there, and either way, you know, and this is sort of a microcosm for the entire thing that we do here, right? Because there's usually more than one way to look at things, and you're always going to have people that only see things their way, and they're going to incorrect you on something when you know, of course you knew all along. So again, like the reason I'm pointing this out is because we see this sort of I don't know, archetype, if you will, just all the time, to where, and you know, I think a lot of this does fall back on the deep state and their stranglehold over entities like the Department of Education, right? Um, and so the reason that we are even discussing the Department of Education is because, of course, Donald Trump mentioned the other day, I guess it's been a couple of days ago now, that like on one of the day one things that he's planning on doing, because he does sort of have a mandate from the American people in the Congress House, like he's got a pretty unique opportunity to do some really amazing things for this country, I think. And you know, y'all know me, I'm not a big fan of Trump by any stretch of the imagination, but day one, he's talking about nixing the Department of Education, which of course you've got all of the you know, inflammatory, like reactivist, alarmist sort of rhetoric coming from the left on this. But I think it's brilliant and long overdue, personally. um, the Department of Education was it was, you know, it started in 1980 under the Jimmy Carter administration, and in 1979, prior to the formation of the Department of Education, the national spending on education was around $70 billion. Okay, according to internet sources. Okay, that's not my claim. That is a claim from internet sources. Okay, and then also, okay, so in 2023, that budget was 383.9 billion. So it like over quadrupled, right, or whatever. Yeah, over quadrupled. Now, of course, adjusted for inflation, um, I don't think that original number was adjusted for inflation. Maybe it was. So if you adjust it for inflation, it's like 280 something billion in the 1970s for spent on education. So there is even still a market increase from then until now, even adjusted for inflation. And I may be adjusting for inflation unnecessarily. That 70 billion may have already been adjusted for inflation. I'm really not 100% sure. Okay, but either way, we're spending. The point is that we're spending way more money on education than we did prior to the Department of Education, and of course we are, right? Of course we are, because you've got this whole giant government bureaucracy that, you know, you've got all these very important people with really nice suits on and really great cars and big old fancy houses and $1,000 shoes, but they're just, you couldn't trust them to make a fucking bologna sandwich, right? I mean, they're just absolutely worthless when it comes to anything practical, like running a business. Like usually people that flock towards government are, it takes a certain kind, right? That's why I think Donald Trump is sort of an exception to the political rule in a lot of senses, because he's just not your typical sort of politician, right? Kamala Harris definitely was, and so I think we did dodge a bullet there either way. Um, but you know, that still remains to be seen. But you know, this whole thing with the Department of Education, if he does that, man, Like I can actually get on the Trump train way harder at that point. But he can't stop with just the Department of Education, in my opinion. He's got to go way further than that. Okay, and maybe he will. I think that's really the only chance that we have as a society and really as an entire world, to sort of enter into the future where not only do we not all die catastrophically in wars and because economies go belly up and sort of controlled demolition like they've been wanting to do. So that's one outcome that we want to avoid. But I think also we have an opportunity to really have a utopia, maybe for like the great grandkids or something, maybe much sooner than that. Okay, but I think that the only way that that is ever going to possibly be accomplished is if we start nixing these government organizations that are just wasteful. And if you look at the progress of our children's intelligence and our education, compared to the rest of the world since the late 1970s, it's abysmal. Like either the Department of Education is an abject failure or it is a deliberate attack and an affront on our children's wherewithal, right? And you know me, I'm not a big fan of the federal indoctrination camps. Okay, so I think that's a huge positive sign. But again, I just don't think he can stop there. Like it's gonna have to be, you're gonna have to continue on with the next one. Should be one or the other. Take your pick. The Federal Reserve. I'm sorry, the non-federal, non-reserve, non-bank, and then of course NASA. Okay. Now I am just a little bit concerned about nixing government organizations like the Department of Education and then creating new government organizations run by absolute nincompoops like Elon Musk. Okay. And I know there's a lot of Elon Musk fanboys out there, probably not so much on this channel. But the fact that Elon Musk has bought his way into the U.S. government in a very high position of power in a sort of newly created, that is a newly created thing, isn't it? Cabinet member, was there a uh, Department of Government Efficiency prior to this? I don't remember ever hearing that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that's never been a thing. That's something new. So they're going to nix the Department of Education and put Elon Musk in charge of efficiency. Oh my goodness, we're in trouble. Elon Musk, his daddy was a rich guy. He was raised in a rich family. His daddy owned like an emerald mine. Okay, never had to want for nothing. He was on the spectrum, so he's a genius in some levels and completely nincompoop in other areas. And I think we all have something we can add to any conversation, right? But the thing is he kind of got lucky in certain ventures, got a lot of money, and bought his way into corporations that he has sort of gotten lucky with and also run into the ground at the same time in many instances. And now he has bought his way into the government. And unless these crazy motherfuckers do something about NASA and SpaceX, right, and nixing these complete waste of time, waste of money agencies that are getting nowhere and fast, then we're really not moving in the right direction at all, man, at least in my opinion. So maybe in those first few days, we're going to see a flat earth presidency. But if we don't, then we're screwed. Like, and that's why, like, so when I say that flat earth is key to revelation and key to like the future of humanity, it's not hyperbole. Like it is totally the way that it is. Because if you continue going through life, especially with like, the keys to the kingdom and you're behind the wheel of the most powerful military in the world and you're still totally deceived about the very ground that you walk upon, you have no foundation to adequately and sensibly judge the rest of reality, right? You are literally founded at the very base of your id upon lies, okay? And really, so of course the shape of the earth doesn't change anything. It's not like if you wake up one day and the earth was a sphere, your life is going to change, right? It really doesn't affect us on a personal level. On the other hand, the entire modern paradigm, the infinite space paradigm, is founded upon this, spheroid Earth concept, right? Where all of humanity is just sort of a speck of dust in infinitude, right? Where, in the grand scheme of things, even the entire Earth is sort of meaningless. And if our entire solar system, in air quotes, if our entire solar system was to be disintegrated or extinguished right this instant, according to these crazed idiots, in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't matter to nothing. Like, it wouldn't make a shit, right? And so when you have that sort of nihilistic, defeatist attitude to where, all life is just sort of an accident of happenstance and evolution, and, maybe we can screw this planet up and strip mine our mountains down to nothing, but, we're going to go to Mars sooner or later, so it's fine. There's millions of other planets that we can just sort of ditch this old one and go off to. That's the whole mindset, right? They're sort of banking on it with the whole drill baby drill mantra, which is absurd, right? We live, the world is a free energy device, okay? We don't need to be getting tokens from our citizens for energy. Like, do you know what a hamper that is on everything? Like, to make these evil oligarchs rich while we all struggle to pay our power bills when we live in a free energy device, it's absurd. And then, not to mention, drilling up fossil fuels and pumping carbon dioxide excess into the atmosphere. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. The oil spills, the purchasing oil from our frenemies overseas. It's just, there's no sense to it. And drill baby drill to make companies like ExxonMobil richer, to me, is not the solution to this problem. It really isn't. So yes, the step in the right direction is definitely nixing the Department of Education, but we need to get away from NASA. We need to get away from the non-federal, non-reserve, non-bank. We need to get away from drill baby drill. I think that we need to do things like start offering tax credits to stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, right? Because I think that's a huge part of the problems that we're facing, is that the family unit has been assaulted to the point to where we kind of have to put our kids into these federal indoctrination camps because both parents are working at least one or two jobs just to barely scrape by and make ends meet, right? That's where they want us. They've got us by the balls, and that's where they want us. Okay, and so when you have a Department of Education that on a federal level that is corrupt through and through, having transgenders read to our children and just do weird things like that. Like, we're not even going to get into. It's just so bizarre, the shit that these federal bureaucrats do. Like, these people are not only just evil, but they're also just so arrogant and useless. Like, honestly, like, like I said, you couldn't even trust them to make a fucking proper sandwich, right? Let alone run the largest military, or the most expensive military anyway in the world, or the world has ever seen, right? Even adjusted for inflation, we're the most expensive military ever. Anyways, so, but the deep state and this great deception that we at this channel here and all of our friends have been working very tirelessly to expose over the years, they go together like peas and carrots, man. Peanut butter and jelly. The deep state and the great deception, they are two peas in a pod, but they rely on the brainwashing of our children as early as possible. I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb. And that's the issue. They get us young with this indoctrination, and there's sort of no escaping it, especially when, even if you decide that you want to homeschool your children, you still have to teach them federally approved curriculum. They have to be able to pass the federally dictated tests, right? So let's see here. Let me slide back over here, and I'm going to check in on the chat, you guys. I know I haven't been very attentive to y'all in the chat, but I'm also still kind of relearning this whole thing here with Riverside. So let's see. There we go. That's what I was going for. Sorry, y'all. Okay. But I kind of think that people should be teaching their kids most of the stuff that they learn in elementary school anyway. Like, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but me personally, and maybe I'm just a weirdo, and maybe it's because I had an older brother, but I wanted to learn how to read when I was young because I saw my older brother doing it, and my mom would read to me when I was really young, and so I wanted to learn how to read. And so by the time I got to kindergarten, I could read like a mofo. You know what I mean? It's because my parents taught me how to read when I was real little. Okay, but the fact that like we have the most expensive educational system in the world, and we've got so many, like a huge percentage of kids that don't even know how to read, even after they've been through years of school. I mean, to me, that's like unthinkable. And I know like some people have different levels of parents than others. Like we were not all gifted with great parents. I certainly wasn't. Um, not that's totally besides the point. But the thing is, man. If people aren't teaching their kids and relying on these sort of wicked bureaucrats to do that job, I do believe that it takes a village to raise a child, right? But a village consists of people that you personally know, people that you've lived around, people that you've hung out with, people that will be there for you, and you would be there for them, like people that sort of rely on each other to survive. That's a village. When you're talking about a pile of snakes in $1,000 shoes, 2,000 miles away, that's not a village, right? And these people, if you can actually call them people with a straight face, they don't have our best interests at heart, man. They really don't, like obviously. And I would take it a step further. That's at best. At best, they simply don't have our best interests at heart. At worst, like they, in a lot of senses, seem to be like very anti-human and certainly anti-Christian, right? For whatever reason, for whatever that's worth. Like I don't know. They certainly don't go around attacking, Maitreya or whatever, like other sort of deities or religious figures, right? They are very much always going after Christianity for whatever reason. But so if the deep state and the great deception go hand in hand and rely on the Department of Education to keep our kids stupid, and that's why I think it's a brilliant and outstanding move if Trump actually goes through with doing away with the Department of Education. But then you have this whole thing of scientism and now sort of scientism 2.0 wokeism, right? Where you've got so-called scientists claiming with a straight face that they don't know the difference between a male and a female, or like a male can have a vagina, right? Because that's what he decides to identify as. I mean, to me, like, so wokeism is like the next sort of iteration or like the next evolution of scientism, right? Because you certainly can't get to wokeism without scientism, right? And this sort of worship of the state, right? And you even see this sort of statism and worship of the state, even in a lot of truther circles, right? Um, where people go to college and they get these degrees that they owe gobs of money on so that they can get very important teaching jobs where they are basically just regurgitators of the curriculum dictated down by the state. Okay, and that's especially in K through 12, but it even bleeds over into higher education, so called, right? So, like, if you're going to study to be a doctor, you have to pass the federally approved tests, okay? And if you're a medical doctor this day and age, you are basically going straight to hell unless you are doing something about your patient's well being beyond what is dictated by the federal guidelines, right? So, like, if you're just prescribing your patients pills for things that you know that they can solve with a minor change in their diet, but you won't tell them that because you might lose your license or you might lose your bottom line on your revenue. Either way, you're a part of the problem. And that's scientism, right? Scientism has taken over every aspect of the medical industry, not to mention greed and capitalism. Um, Capitalism is, against all natural law that there is. Okay? the Most High Creator gave us all things freely and infinitely, right? Freely and infinitely. I mean, that's pretty damn generous, right? And what do we do with it? Well, we turn around and poison our inheritance and chop it up and sell it for the maximum profit. Yeah. But you can't take it with you, can't you, man? Fuck, you can't. Um, so that brings me sort of to the next point I wanted to talk about. And by the way, one point I did want to mention that prior to 1980, when the U.S. Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter, the peanut farmer, who may actually be JFK, or at least played by the same person that played the character on TV. There is a school of thought on a conspiracy theory that JFK and Jimmy Carter are the same dude. Let me know in the comments in the chat if you want me to go into that sort of conspiracy theory today. So just put in the chat in all caps Carter. And if enough of y'all are interested, we'll look into it right now today. But prior to 1980, the United States was right at the top of the world in terms of education, like one of the best, right? And prior to the Department of Education being formed, which is again is a federal bureaucracy that has sort of carte blanche authority over local teachers, which is absurd to me. But prior to them being formed in 1980 and implemented in 1980, we had the best education in the world, and it was pretty affordable for taxes, and it was handled at the state level, right? After that, now it's fast forward 40 whatever years, 44 years now, and it's way more expensive. We have this sort of common core mathematics, which is just ridiculous. Math is boring and complicated enough as it is. If you've never looked into common core math, it is just some of the most senseless. It's just nonsensical. Like, to even call that math, to me, I don't understand. Like, instead of doing something that you could just jot down or do in your head, they want you to take like these long, sort of cumbersome or convoluted steps towards a solution that doesn't really make much sense. But it's like they want you to get good at fucking wrong thing. I don't know. It's like sort of like, in my opinion, it's another level of like neuro-linguistic programming, right? Because I think that, like, if you're able to be sort of sharp with math in your head at times, it helps you in other areas, whether it's like musically or typing, or I don't know. It definitely doesn't help you with walking and breathing at the same time, because I'm pretty good with one and I can't do the other. You know what I mean? So, but speaking of, so on this same vein, and I will check the chat here in just a minute. Are y'all familiar with Dr. James Tour? I've mentioned him a few times on different streams, and I may have shared some of his work on streams. I don't know. But Dr. James Tour is a microbiologist. He's at Rice University. He's into nanotech, and he's also a Jew for Jesus. So that's always pretty cool, right? Forgive me, my roommate's home, so the dogs are freaking out, and we're just gonna have to deal with it until they chill out. It'll just take a minute. Let me see if I can check on y'all in the chat. Ooh, that's a spicy meatball right there. Oh wow, chat is pretty active, so I missed a lot, didn't I? Okay, so what's up, Costa Rica? Oh man, I really want to come down there. Ever since Endless Summer, man. Or was it Endless Summer too? Beautiful country though, man. And I actually had some pot that was imported up from Costa Rica. This was years ago. It was fire, dude. Costa Rican weed was really good. It was like I think it was a Sensibilia. So it was like that sex-starved plant. So they did it just right, man. Amazing. Okay. So anyways, what's up, Costa Rica? Yes, sir. He says, Morgile, I'm supporting for Costa Rica in Central America area. Your next live, please invite Eric Dubay or someone smart. Oh, come on now. Y'all don't be mean to Kristen. I'm not gonna. I mean, I hear you, man. It wasn't the best stream, but Kristen's a great researcher. I respect her very much, and show a little respect, man. It's not always easy to get on a live stream and try to do this, especially with delays and technical issues. And it takes practice. It's not something that you can just pick up and start doing instantly. And she'll be back. Not on every stream. She's not going to be on every single stream, and that was never the intention. But just have a little respect, man. And I hear you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy it and that you love my content. I appreciate that. I respect that. But try to show a little class. Okay, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Mikey Smith, hey, what's up, man? Mikey Smith, horizontally opposed. Costa Rica, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to know it. Yeah, I have a lot of support from people in Vietnam and Tasmania and different places, and it is nice to know that it's not just a little echo chamber here in South Carolina. In fact, like if I try to talk about this sort of stuff with a lot of people in South Carolina, a lot of people don't take it. A lot of people are on the frequency now; they're getting there. A lot of people just don't want to have anything to do with it. And you don't really want to. Well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go there. Yeah, we'll just keep that one to myself. Okay. Anyway, who owns a P1000? Mikey says P1000 can't record through the moisture in the sky to record clear stars. Yeah, that's something that I totally agree with you, man. Like a lot of the noise that we see coming from the stars on these P1000 shots. Um, it's definitely like liquid noise in the upper atmosphere. It's just pot, man. And this stream is also brought to you by Flat Earth Farms up in NorCal. Dank So Fire. It'll make you see the Earth is flat. Buy some for your globe-tart friends at select distribution centers in NorCal. Actually, I think he's all over the state, but it's really great, man. Grows it outside and is still some of the best, man. Really great. Anyways, the moisture, yeah, that's what it is, dude. Like it is moisture in the sky that's causing a lot of that noise. Um, but it is kind of interesting that each star appears to be in many ways unique. The wandering stars are definitely unique to one another. But how much of that is just merely noise from the particulates and the moisture in the upper atmosphere, right? And that's why, I think that some kind of entity like NASA would be really important to study this realm and to study what's up there, but not to lie to us in order to control things, right? And that's what it's all about. It's all comes down to the military industrial complex, which NASA is definitely a part of. The Space Force is definitely a part of. And until these sort of evil government entities start falling by the wayside, the great grandkids don't really have a shot in hell. I'm sorry to say. Like, it's just, I don't see how this sort of dog and pony show that is sort of the way things have been going here can continue for very much longer, and that for like generations. I just don't see how that could even occur. Like, so some shit's got to change, and hopefully this is going to be a step in the right direction. Maybe it is, man. I reserve my enthusiasm for politicians, right? Because politicians have a history of being very much self-serving. But for somebody like Trump who has everything, maybe now he's sort of reinvigorated and back in there, and he doesn't have the sort of same trajectory that most presidents do that do 8 years. Maybe things will be different. Maybe this will be the start of, because we are due. Like, that's the good thing. I'm always an optimist because we are due for this sort of change in venue, right? So we're sort of coming out of this age of oppression and deception. We're definitely living through apocalypse or revelation right now, at least in my opinion. And on the other side of this, not the end of the world, it's the end of that old shitty world. It's the beginning of what could potentially be the trajectory towards like utopia, heaven on earth. And I'd love to see it, but even if we sort of know, and I feel very confident that it's in a lot of ways it's already mission accomplished because again, in my opinion, it is a fucking miracle that we even woke up to these truths, right? Whether it's Flurfin or like the Fed or the false flag attacks or the fluoride in the water or the Department of Education being an abject failure or a tool for the damn devil. One, pick one. Doesn't matter. So many of these things have been exposed, and that's really the main thing that had to happen, right? They've sort of awakened a sleeping giant in many aspects because we as a people, we can't go about solving problems we don't know we have, right? You're not going to put together any sort of a plan to solve a problem that you're not aware of, let alone execute such a plan. And so now that we, and even if we are just 1 or even 10% of the population that is sort of in tune with this awakening, um, even though we're a minority, the thing about the truth is it is very resilient. Um, it will be obviously violently opposed and we will be ridiculed and contested and attacked and our credibility will suffer. But then eventually, after the truth goes through all those other stages, the casual observer even just accepts it as an obvious, self evident fact. And that's what will eventually happen with this truth as well, unless they have something to do with it, man. I mean, these crazy Illuminati asshole guys, man, there's not a whole lot that they wouldn't do. You know what I mean? They'd sacrifice their own children for a few dollars or like a few points on their returns. You know what I mean? Like these people are just the worst, man. So like, if they'll hypothetically chemtrail everybody, including themselves and their families, um, what won't they do? If they will poison our water with developmental neurotoxin, sodium fluoride for decades and decades, um, and even though we're aware of it and contesting it and protesting it, they're still doing it like nothing's happened. Like that's pretty brazen. So I think that if we see El Trumpinator taking more of these steps and following through with doing things like nixing the Department of Education, man, I think we're well on our way. And again, the reason that I'm so optimistic is because it is a damn miracle that we even know about this stuff. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine waking up this morning and you were still a globetard? Oh my God, I'd rather be dead. Honestly, I would. Okay. So, Mikey Smith, yeah, just text me sometime. Send me your contact information via text, and then we'll talk on the phone or something. Yeah, just link up with me. Um, I'll put my phone number in the chat here. Okay. Just recently found endemic bird expert Costa Rica. Just recently found Iron Republic narrated. Oh yeah, man, that was a good one. Yeah. And something that I've been meaning to do and I haven't done it yet. I probably should have. I just wanted to look at the political records of wherever dude was from. What was his name? I can't think of names right now. But whoever the character, the main dude in the Iron Republic story was, at the beginning of the story, he had apparently run for office, and that sort of thing would be public record. So, I mean, I guess if this was sort of historical fiction or whatever, even if it was historical fiction, they could pretend to be somebody that they weren't. But I don't know, man. It really, parts of it really ring true to me. I don't know. I mean, it is fascinating to think about the Iron Republic. Wouldn't it be something though? I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me that they have been hiding more land, and that is a big motivating factor for the globe Earth deception. Like that, to me, that's a huge part of it. You know, what better way to keep people penned in and cordoned off into a confined area um, than a psychological sort of boundary, right? I mean, the Antarctic don't hurt, right? But at the same time, you know, so like people aren't gonna like pop by the Antarctic on their way home from work one day. That's like not how that works. Um, but you know, the psychological barrier I think is more effective because there are a lot of people out there, myself included, that sort of dreamed of being explorers when they were little kids. But to me, it was always sort of depressing. And you know, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but I always thought it was sort of depressing that there weren't any new lands to discover. Like it's all been discovered, it's all been mapped by satellites in space, right? And so, no matter, like, maybe you could explore the bottom of the ocean, maybe you could aspire to be an astronaut and explore space, but yeah, it does sort of sever our pioneering spirit, doesn't it? Our explorative sort of nature as human beings by telling us it's all been found, it's all been discovered, and then you know, even if you go south for 1,000 miles, you'll just come right back around where you started eventually, right? That's their shtick, and so it is sort of the perfect psychological barrier. That's why I'm not a big fan of the whole theory of a dome in the sky that is founded on the land somewhere, right? So like a snow globe dome. Like if you walk south far enough, you're gonna bump into the glass. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's the case, but if that is true, then what is the point for the deception, right? I mean, they're having to convince us that we live on a enclosed system with no escape, so they put us on a ball, right? But why would they have to do that if we already lived on an enclosed system with no escape? It really does kind of defeat the purpose of the deception, at least in my opinion. But really, what better way to keep us from even thinking about exploring beyond the far south than to tell us, well, yeah, it's like Pac-Man, dude. You can go that way, but you're just going to wind up back over here, right? It's how it works on the Mercator projection, right? Well, unless you go from the top, you don't come back up over here. Right? So there's that. Yeah, but that's because it's a cylindrical conformal map, right? It's not a Pac-Man thing. Anyways, James Tour. So Dr. James Tour, this microbiologist, Rice University, Jew for Jesus, and he also believes that on the cellular level, um, yet again lies the signature of the Most High Creator of all things, basically. And I'm kind of putting words in his mouth, but so like if the Most High shows his handiwork in the stars and the wandering stars, then two, I would say that he shows his handiwork on the cellular level as well, which in many senses is like way more impressive, right? Because if you just sort of cursorily study the cells, you know, that whether it's skin cells, hair cells, single celled organisms, they are infinitely complex, like just extremely complex, mysterious, amazing little factories of energy and like chemical engineers, like cells can do things. One of the analogies that Dr. James Tork gave in one of his talks is he does fascinating talks, and he did debate the guy, Professor Dave. Um, but one of the things that he said that really fascinated me about these cells was, I lost my train of thought. What did he say, John? he fuck, I hate when I do that. Like I start rambling and I lose my train of thought. I'll come to it. He said he likens these cells to like little power generators, and they're able to not only generate their own power, but they're able to take chemical components out of like a chemical mess, like a chemical soup, and cells are able to do amazing things like with chemistry that people aren't able to do. Right? So like I'm definitely not doing this justice. So what he's saying is like So like, okay, if you eat a bunch of stuff, right? So you drink some milk and you eat a steak and you eat some bread, right? It's three different things, but you put it in your stomach and it, whatever, it breaks down, and then the cells sort of are able to chemically do things with that mess that you could never try to do that in chemistry. Like when you're doing chemistry and mixing chemicals, you want your stuff to be pristine and isolated. You can't just throw a bunch of shit together and add some heat and some stomach acid or whatever, and then voila, you've got your end result. That's not how it works. But on the cellular level, the little worker bees of God, if you will, they're able to just do some amazing things that he argues just these sorts of things can't come about from the primordial ooze, um, like spontaneously, right? Or like by chance, by happenstance, like, or like a bolt of lightning struck this slop and now you have a single cell organism. Like that's kind of the way that evolution begins. Like they don't have an answer to where life begins. And if you sort of read the ancient wisdom texts, that is not just the Judeo-Christian Bible, but certainly in the Judeo-Christian Bible, you find that there are other schools of thought which actually make a lot more sense than the primordial ooze sort of stood up and slopped around and became a cell and then started self-replicating. I mean, how absurd is that, right? Um, But I would say that like someone like Dr. James Tour, and let me play a clip here. Actually do have a clip so that y'all will know who I'm talking about, because most of you probably have never seen his work. I do highly recommend, when you've got some time, just watch some of his lectures, microbiology lectures, if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's fascinating stuff, man, and I can't do it justice. I'm just interested in it. I'm certainly no expert in that by any means. But let's see here. Where is it? Okay, let me stop sharing this in here. Yeah, okay. Here we go. So let's check this out for a minute.
You know, 15 minutes, add some water, and that should get rid of a lot of the sulfur.
For James Tour, the journey to becoming a distinguished chemist and world-renowned researcher in nanotechnology was an unusual one.
I wanted to become a New York State trooper, and I couldn't get into the academy because I was colorblind. What I did is I set out to go into forensic science, and my father said, why don't you just study chemistry in general, and you could specialize after that, which was good advice.
After graduating and working as an assistant professor, James made an incredible breakthrough in molecular electronics. It came after reading an article in a science journal.
In that article, there was a molecule that was built as a perpendicular type of structure. And it came out of IBM, and they said that this could be a switching device if anybody could make it. So I thought it would be a good thing to practice making, and so we ended up making it. And then I was contacted by Scientific American, and they said, we've learned that you've just made the most difficult molecule ever synthesized. But I realized that if we took our tools of organic synthesis and moved into other areas where they were not familiar with synthesis, we could have a huge impact.
It was this outstanding achievement that eventually led him to Rice University, now a professor of chemistry, computer science, mechanical engineering, and material science at the Smalley Institute for Nanoscale Science. James' research in nanotechnology is equally groundbreaking.
What we're doing is we're programming molecular computers. That was a project that we were involved in, and that we try to understand the chemistry that goes on in the actual hardware, the switches. For example, we have an area in nano machines where we build nano cars, where we can park 50,000 of these across the diameter of a human hair. So they're very, very small. They're about 2 nanometers by 3 nanometers. But these are the size structures, the size domains that we can begin to consider.
And, don't you just love how it's CGI? I mean, I know that there are actual, or I believe there are actual, like microscopic images of these sorts of things. But um, the CGI is definitely interesting, but it does make you wonder, like, okay, I'd love to see one of these nanotech cars in action in reality. But so what he's saying is you can park 50,000 of these across the thickness of a human hair. To me, that sounds pretty far fetched, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I love this guy to death. Um, but that's a pretty tall order, dude. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's continue with this. It's pretty interesting stuff. Let's go.
And then we try to monitor and watch these move across a surface, learn how to pick things up and move them, because ultimately what's done is, if you want to do bottom-up construction, much like is done in all of biological systems, everything is done from the bottom up. This is the way that God has decided to construct things. In 100 years or 200 years, we'll see buildings built this way, where we'll just bring in basic raw materials and little nanomachines will begin to build a structure, and you'll see it go up. Just as blades of grass grow, the structure will assemble.
Okay. And so these are hollow?
Yes.
And what do you want to do with this?
I gotta say, man, like, if that's true, like, if what he's saying actually comes to fruition, wouldn't that be something? You know, it just makes you wonder what sorts of technologies were actually applied in the ancient past, because we definitely know that they had some shit that we don't, right? I mean, it's just obvious. Like, if you look at the lingam stones in India, like giant crystals that were obviously spun to, like, just look up the lingam stones, man. They're pretty cool. There's a Indian guy that does all kinds of videos on them. But you've got those, you know, the pyramids, the monoliths, the megalith sites, the polygonal wall structures that have stood for thousands of years through earthquakes and everything. The ancients definitely had some shit we don't. And when you start talking about this sort of a technology where you can just sort of grow things, or, you know, a lot of the ancient legends, like for either I want to say Taj Mahal, or definitely Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The legend is that it was basically spoken into existence in a single night by a magician, right? So of course, I'm not saying that's true, but isn't it sort of interesting, the legends and the lore that are behind these ancient structures? And it just makes you wonder, like, wow, if something like that is possible, where you can, like, grow a building, or, you know, maybe like grow an iPhone using nanotech, that would be one step on our way as well. But if it's just merely for the enrichment of some corporation and their shareholders, then we've lost the damn point. And also, if some government entity takes the patent holder and, you know, suicides him and then buries the patent under billions of dollars in lawsuits, then we're missing the point too. And that's sort of what always happens with world-changing technologies and grassroots movements, isn't it? They just sort of try to quash them and nix them in their fledgling sort of stages, right?
Among the numerous applications derived from the work of James and his research team is the creation of carbon nanovectors for medical treatments.
So we have these nanoparticles that we call hydrophilic carbon clusters. And what these can do is we can target them to certain cell types using typical targeting schemes. So it can go and find the cell of interest if you wanted to go to a cancer cell, for example. But in the face of trauma, a superoxide forms in excess and it starts attacking good tissue. So what we do is we made these carbon nanoparticles that will react with that superoxide and decompose the superoxide. And so that's what it was designed for, and it actually works quite well.
In addition to this, James has had over 350 research papers published in academic journals, becoming one of the top 10 cited authors in the world since 2000.
Okay, by the way, I'll pause that right there for a minute. This is the guy that did at least one debate, maybe a couple of debates with Professor Dave, you know, the infamous Globetard. And so basically, Dr. Tor's position is that there are certain elements of a cell that cannot be explained by evolution, right? It's just and he gives examples and explanations as to why. And then you've got people like Professor Dave, who isn't a professor of anything, who just basically during the debate just kind of attacked him and provoked him and insulted him and tried to belittle him and belittle his position and undermine his credibility, and just he just really played the whole globe-tard game. You know how they do. But at the end of the day, I tend to agree with Dr. Tor and what he mentioned about um, this is the way that God intended things to do, right? So, like on a cellular level, the smallest parts of everything, it's like God is in control of all of that. And maybe not control isn't the best word, but it's autonomous. And the intelligence behind these sorts of plans is just unfathomable, right? It's like way beyond anything that we could ever comprehend, let alone invent, right? And for all of their posturing and bravado, the so-called scientific community is incapable of creating a single cell or a single seed, even from scratch, right? And they know what the parts are that they need, and they know what the end result is. But if you give them all the parts that they need or all the raw materials, and tell them here's a gazillion dollars, and now go make me a single cell or a single seed from scratch, they can't do it. They can only sort of riff on what's already available from the creator. Like biological living material is unique, you know, something about it we don't understand. And I'll tell you why. It's because, well, I'm not going to tell you why. Y'all figure it out. Let's continue.
For all his success, he keeps dreaming of more.
I'd love to see some of the medications, the nanomaterials that we're using for medicine, be ultimately used to benefit people. We have projects related to pancreatic cancer and different cancer types, and I see people suffering from that. I'd like to see that used. But the best...
Okay, and I will say something in there as well. Okay. So like the battle against cancer, I've lost friends and loved ones to cancer over the years, and it's a shame. It's a tragedy. Um, the majority of the people I've lost to cancer actually didn't die from cancer. They were killed by chemotherapy and radiation. Really, is what killed them. Because it's just terrible. It just wreaks havoc on your body. It's terrible. It's like poison, radiation poisoning, and then chemically poisoning you, and sort of hoping that you get some of the cancer with it, right? And then maybe they'll do surgery and stuff too. But there are definite natural cures for cancer that I cannot tell you on YouTube, or they will ban my account. They'll take this video down and ban my account for good. You'll never see me on YouTube again, at least not on this channel. And so I can't tell you what it is, but a lot of people do know. And if you're interested, contact me privately. And this applies to like tumorous, cancerous growths, whether benign or malignant. But the thing is, and this came out in the 1980s. Like there was doctors doing clinical trials with this stuff. It was very successful, but the cancer industry has done a great job of burying it and convincing even very altruistic, well-meaning people like Dr. Tor that we need to be out there looking for a cure for cancer. When I have it on good authority that the cure is there. It's very simple, very natural, no side effects, and super affordable. The thing is that would ruin the cancer industry, and all of these corporations that have a commitment to their shareholders' annual growth would go belly up, and we can't have that, right? Because they have very important jobs. Their jobs are so important, and they make a lot of money for their shareholders. So that's like the most important thing ever, right? So that's a shame. But again, this is my point, though. So like Dr. Tor, unfortunate to say, as far as I know, at this point, is still a globetard, right? So there's a part of him that is not capable of seeing certain things within the realm of scientism, especially since he's so deep in it. Now, I do commend him for being as on point as he is on so many things, but when it comes to the globe Earth stuff, a lot of these guys just run away from it and won't touch it with a 10-foot pole because they're already in a battle for their credibility. They're already trying to make people think that they're not some fringe idiot, but they're actually onto something, and they believe that there's evidence of the creator on a cellular level, and that's a pretty crazy thing to say. So like it is terrifying for him to go out on some fringe topic and like even consider what we're on about. So it's like that's my point here. That's a problem. The globe Earth deception hampers and dampens people's ability to think clearly on fundamental levels. Okay, but once you realize that these scientific bureaucracies and government bureaucracies are totally capable of deliberate deception, then it frees you from a lot of baggage that you're carrying around. I promise. So one thing I will do is hope and pray that people like Dr. Tor come around to this truth. It's just a matter of time. He's already halfway there on a lot of stuff. Same thing goes for people like Elon Musk. I mean, I'm a firm believer that there is a chance that even Elon Musk is just a globetard. He's not doing anything nefarious with his time with SpaceX and all these things. He's just a globetard with Asperger's syndrome. So I hope and pray that the revelation of flat Earth and the static plane truth hits Elon Musk square in the dome too, man. Because like one thing about flirters is once someone comes to terms with this truth, usually you can trust them a lot more deeply than you can trust someone who's deceived by the greatest deception of all time that's fooled the entire world, even the very elect for generations, right up until the last few years, right? So I hope and pray that. And keeping in the same vein, we're gonna move on to Kent Hovind, who is just another example of exactly what I'm talking about in this stream. But let's continue on with this video because I kind of wanted to see James rock on a couple of his points on microbiology because it's really really interesting stuff. I wasn't necessarily interested in this part of it. I probably should have queued up some time.
Best treasure we have, it's like in any field, the best thing we have is the people. It's the people that we work with and seeing them go out, because that's what will really outlast me as we train these students and see them go forward.
Jim Tour is perhaps the most intense person I have ever known.
That has been his life for more than 30 years.
Talked about how I can get to God through this man, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for me.
A few months later, after studying the Bible, James made an important decision.
On November 7th, 1977, I was all alone in my room. And I got down on my knees, and I asked the Lord to forgive me and to come into my life. And all of a sudden, this burden that I had been carrying since the young man shared with me about my sin just started to lift. And I felt the presence of God so strongly filling the room. His presence was so vivid, and I was being drawn. And I didn't want to get up, and I just started weeping.
The experience left him deeply changed. James soon joined a nearby church. It was here that he met his future wife at a potluck supper.
Went in to do the dishes, and she was already doing them. My heart just...
But he has a very tender heart.
Is leaving.
Don't care. Okay.
He is
Well, that's
so
cool.
involved in God's word.
That probably wasn't the video I was going for, y'all. I thought I had a different one queued up. We'll get it on the next one. He's got a ton of stuff out there. And if you missed, hold on, somebody just opened my door here and left it open. Let me go close my door. Hey, if you come and open this door while I'm live streaming, do you mind closing it behind you? Thanks. Yeah, and I can only imagine in the chat, y'all. I'm going to soundproof this room as soon as I get, I'm hoping to get some damn money in here pretty soon because I'm already approved for like gobs and gobs of money through FEMA, but they they mailed my check to my old address that still happens to be on my ID, and so I have to go through this whole process to cancel that check, which I don't think anyone's cashed it, but it either they sent it to the address here and someone stole it out of my box, or they sent it to my old address. They can't tell me which it is. They don't know, which is kind of stupid. You would think that they would have record of where they mailed it, but anyway, in the meantime, I got my Venmo card in the mail, and so I can. They've got my direct deposit information for Venmo. So hopefully that's going to be not too much longer, and I'm going to get some. Excuse me, I'm going to get some soundproofing for these walls because I know that the sound from the living room over there bleeds in through here, but it's nothing a few little soundproof and egg crates won't fix, right? Anyway. Okay, so but Dr. Kent Hovind though is another one because it's the same point, and again, just to reiterate what the point is, you can be the smartest, most intelligent person with integrity and just the best interests at heart, right? Of everybody, just totally altruistic, right? You can be that type of person, but if you are deceived about your fundamental understanding of the world and the greater extent the universe, you are utterly misled about that to the point to where you will not listen to reason, you will not trust your eyes, you will not reconsider your core beliefs. That's a problem, okay? That's a huge problem. And I think that if people like Kent Hovind and Dr. James Tour can, I'm not going to try to convince them to become flurfers, but to just revisit your beliefs in this spinning ball Earth and do yourself a favor and skeptically really try to debunk the spinning ball Earth theory. Okay, really try to debunk that. Okay, don't worry about trying to debunk flat Earth just yet, because chances are you have no clue what you're even talking about. Okay? You don't even know what you're trying to debunk, right? But when it comes to the spinning ball Earth, if you made it all the way to Rice University as a molecular biologist or whatever, then certainly you know at least a little bit about the heliocentric model. You got to, right? It's standard curriculum. You got to learn it. Try to debunk it, right? There's some basic things that you can just look at, man. Some of the basic laws of physics like thermodynamics, right? Fluid dynamics. We live in a pressurized system here, about 14.7 pounds per square inch at sea level, right? It's measurable. And as long as we can agree on units of measurement like pounds and inches, then we measurably definitely have a pressurized environment here. 14.7 pounds per inch, per square inch at sea level on average, okay? Now, what their claim is, what NASA's claim and what the Globetards' religious belief is that infinite space beyond the Kármán line, which the Kármán line is about 60 miles up, according to them. Infinite space beyond the Kármán line is a very, very high vacuum. Okay, many tour, spelled differently, but many tour, just like James Tour. But infinite space is supposedly this very powerful vacuum, which is adjacent to our atmosphere. And there is no sort of structure separating these two areas. Now, that is their claim. That is the heliocentric model. That is part of it. Okay? And the problem is you cannot have a pressurized environment housed within a vacuum. It is just breaks fundamental laws of physics left and right. And everybody who's ever learned anything about the heliocentric model knows this. It's occurred to everyone who has any sort of thought capable in their head, right? That's a big problem. Now, when we're growing up in this system that has already taught us when we were very young that it's stupid to consider anything, but the spinning ball Earth. we sort of get past it. It's a very bizarre thing. Like logical, smart people see this problem of fluid dynamics, the pressurized environment here on Earth, adjacent to the infinite vacuum of space with no sort of structure separating these two areas, right? That's what we've got according to them. That's a problem, okay? But never in a million years would it occur to us that, well, maybe it's because we've been lied to by NASA for our entire lives, and even our grandparents didn't know this shit. Like, how many hundreds of years does this go back? I mean, according to many sources, it's like since 1493, right? When Columbus discovered America with all the people on it. The savage natives running around naked in the woods with, feathers in their hats, going, right? Indians. Right? The problem is they weren't even near India, but whatever. I got off on a tangent, but the reason that this is such a hard one for people like Dr. Hovind and Dr. James Tour to let go of, it's not because they're already in a desperate fight to preserve their credibility in the mainstream sort of eye. It's not just that. That's a big part of it. But really, the thing that it all falls back on for everyone is the fact that the globe Earth deception predates our conscious mind coming online in many cases, right? So like the globe Earth programming, at least for me, I had the mobile hanging above my bed with all the planets on it when I was a baby. I remember it. Okay. I remember like when I was in first grade, I think I did like a color like book report thing, a multi-page report thing on the planets because I was fascinated with the planets. I remember before I ever even went to preschool, my dad showing me the little plastic globe on the counter. I mean, this is something that predates, um, you know, like who we are as people. It's part of our core belief. It's like a foundational underlying thing that is beyond reproach, especially because every person in authority, every authoritative entity in our lives, the government agencies, the schools, NASA, your parents, all of these authoritative figures in our lives are telling you that you would be fucking crazy if you think anything but spinning ball Earth. Okay. But the thing is, the problem is if you actually skeptically go and question that belief and hold the spinning ball Earth's feet to the fire, as it were, dude, it falls apart like instantly. It's just the one, just that one thing. The problem with fluid dynamics is a deal breaker for spinning ball Earth. So they've got to really change their model. But no, they just get around it by telling you, well, no, it's not really the pressurized system adjacent to the vacuum of space. See, it's a pressure gradient, right? So even though we do have high pressure down here, it's a little bit less at higher altitudes and a little bit less. And the higher and higher you go, it gradually peters out into nothing. That's when you reach the Kármán line. That's where gravity fails to take over, and you have infinite space beyond that point. So you don't really have the infinite vacuum of space adjacent to a high pressure environment. And that might work for some people, but the thing is you must have containment to hold pressure and have a pressure gradient to begin with. The pressure prerequisites the pressure gradient, right? Or the pressure gradient prerequisites the pressure, right? And so that doesn't solve it. But it's not as if that's the only problem with the spinning ball Earth, right? Not even by a long shot. It's not even close. You've got the problem where the Earth is a fixed frame of reference, right? It is. That's not argued. The Earth very deviously behaves as if it is stationary. Any test you can possibly ever muster to conduct will align with the fact that the Earth is not in any sort of motion, not rectilinear motion, not curvilinear motion, not rotational motion, not orbital motion. None of it. It is static. The Earth has never moved a single yard. Now, that is not to say that plate tectonics aren't a thing. Probably, it seems like there's evidence for that. But plate tectonics are not only possible on a globe, as the globetards would have you believe about everything. So, it's not just the problem with fluid dynamics. It's not just the problem with basic physics and the lack of any sort of telltale signatures of acceleration, right? Because, by the way, curved linear motion is innately acceleration, period. Okay. Anytime you have curved linear motion, you have acceleration. Okay. The shtick that your teachers told you when you were a little kid, that the reason we don't feel the Earth spinning and orbiting is because it is in a consistent, non accelerative reference frame, right? It is a non inertial reference frame. But the thing is that is nonsense, okay? Because angular acceleration is definitely inherently acceleration, okay? Not to mention the fact that the sun is supposedly in motion while the earth is supposedly in motion around the sun, okay? So you have situations where the earth is trailing behind the sun, sort of catching up with the sun and going past it much faster than the sun, out in front of it. And then you have other situations where the earth is traveling in the opposite direction as the sun and having to sort of retrograde. But they say it's a consistent motion. That is ridiculous. Have you ever ridden the salt and pepper shaker at the fair? What about the gravitron? Okay, so maybe they're not exact analogies, but there should be measurable acceleration of the Earth. There should be, and there isn't. Okay, I challenge anyone to take a mechanical gyroscope and find evidence of gyroscopic drift because of the Earth spinning. I challenge anyone to fire an air rifle or some sort of projectile perfectly vertically, and just see if the projectile comes down as if it is coming down above a spinning ball Earth. The Earth is stationary. All evidence supports that, and yet we're the crazy ones for telling it, right? I mean, that is how vast backwards this world is. And so, as much as I love and respect people like James Tour, and same thing ditto for Kent Hovind, until they let down their guard, consider the potentiality that perhaps they were wrong, and then go about debunking the spinning ball Earth, at least to their own personal satisfaction, what do you have left but a flat and motionless Earth? That's it. And it isn't those two things. I mean, there are problems, astronomical problems with spinning ball Earth. That includes Polaris, that includes the seasonal variance of visible space, that includes the moon being in the wrong place sometimes based on its phase, that includes the inner solar system being visible after sunset, which is geographically or geometrically impossible. I mean, there is just item after item after item after item after item. So many things that are just globe earth killers, and we're the crazy ones for pointing it out. I mean, it is sickening and saddening. And if we have to sit through another 4 years of President Trump, where we're stuck with the Federal Reserve scam, we're stuck with NASA, we're stuck, okay, do away with the Department of Education and then put Elon Musk in charge of government efficiency. Have you seen what he did with Twitter? Have you seen what he's done with Tesla? Oh my God. Have you seen what he did with PayPal? Okay. I don't know, man. We'll see. It remains to be seen, but I'm not going to start holding my breath to see if Trump is going to be any different than any other politician. But if he continues and nixes the Department of Education like he's saying, again, he could spend 4 years not nixing the Department of Education, and that would be a big waste of everything, wouldn't it? So we'll see what happens. But the big question that I want to ask is, will Trump nix NASA? What do y'all think? You're checking on the chat with y'all, and for some reason, I'm just not getting the chat here on my end, so I'm gonna have to go over here. There we go. Mud, nimble horse, yeah. Mud plus lightning plus billions of years equals Darwin. Yeah, exactly. It's just absolute nonsense, for sure. Here we go. Oh, sorry, y'all. I'm trying to do something here, and I just reread. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I know. Sorry that I know that TV's probably bleeding in here. Okay, so what I want to do is stop this. Yeah. I am not able to. Okay, wait. Share. It says someone else is currently sharing. So what am I sharing? I'm sorry, I'm sitting here trying to figure this software out. It's not letting me show you what I want to show you. That's kind of not cool. Ah, there we go. So this should work now. Oh. My bad, y'all. This is not what I'm trying to do here. Yeah. Forgive me, y'all. Forgive me. There. That's all I want to do. Just have something else other in the background that wasn't that stupid thing. Okay. So that was the point of what I wanted to get at with this was like, I can't even think, it's so loud over there. I'm sorry, I want to wrap it up. But I'm gonna be soundproofing this room here as soon as I get some of that FEMA money. I'm working on getting me some clients from home, and hopefully I'll have my car back pretty soon, and I'll be able to go back to work outside of the home should I need to. It's just not feasible to spend $70 a day commuting with Uber to earn maybe 110 after taxes if I'm lucky. It's not feasible. Like you can't do it, man. But anyway, things are going pretty good, you guys. I just wanted to get this out here because I think that it is amazing that Trump is even talking about nixing the Department of Education. I think that is a huge step in the right direction if he actually does it. But let's not stop there, right? And I think that if we can do NASA and the Fed, dude, that would be like a perfect presidency. Even if it takes him 4 years to get rid of NASA and the Fed, and we'll go ahead and say the IRS too. You can't have a great America with the IRS. You just can't. And really, once the Fed goes, the IRS kind of goes too, doesn't it? Right. So anyway, maybe we'll see it, man. Let's pray for it, dude. Like honestly, I think that there is nothing that cannot be achieved with faith and prayer. So. Bowing our heads in silence to pray to the Heavenly Father, creator of all things. We just ask that you help align this world to your will and to the kingdom of God. Amen, amen, amen. All right, y'all, be good, one love, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Windshield washed like that. I think I was in the city and the guy was on $5 or something. Washing windows.